Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Untangle 101 webinar series. Today, we'll be going through Captive Portal and BYOD, Bring Your Own Device. Captive Portal is one of our NG Firewall applications. So we'll be showing you kind of the trends and problems that Bring Your Own Device has for many industries, as well as how a solution to resolving that. I am your host, Shannon Bonfiglio. I'm part of the marketing team here at Untangle. I also have with us Chad McNaughton. He's one of our sales engineers, and he'll be taking us through the presentation as well as a demonstration. Just a few housekeeping rules before I pass it over to Chad. Please be sure you're selecting the correct audio preference. If you are selecting to use a phone, you will need to dial in and use the access code provided. You also have the option to use your computer, microphone, and speakers, but please be sure you have a strong enough internet connection, otherwise you will not have an enjoyable webinar. Just a few other things. If you have any questions, please be sure to submit them in the Q&A box on the right-hand side, the questions box. We have a few staff members on hand to help answer any questions. If we do not get to your question, please be sure to email us at support@untangle.com or sales@untangle.com. Just a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, so you'll be able to rewatch or share this webinar after the event has ended. It'll be uploaded to the Untangle YouTube channel within 24 hours, and everyone who is registered will receive a link to that recording. And I believe that's it. I'll pass it over to Chad.
All right, thanks, Shannon. I skipped a slide there. Let's start at slide one. As Shannon said, everybody, this is an Untangle 101 webinar. We're not going to do deep dives into the app, into functionality, troubleshooting, anything like that. So it's going to be a pretty high-level overview of how Captive Portal can help with a BYOD type environment. Apologies in advance. It's December in Colorado. I'm getting over a cold. I'll try to mute myself when I cough, things like that. As Shannon said, please don't be shy about entering questions into the panel on the side there. We do have some staff members on hand to answer any questions, but we will do a little Q&A session here towards the end. So the trends in Bring Your Own Device are trending upwards, obviously. BYOD and enterprise mobility are basically coming up to, the $75 billion mark here by 2021. So less than 20% of enterprises provide mobile phones to employees, which means most bring their personal devices. This can be a really interesting aspect to your network if you allow BYOD, because you never know what someone's going to bring onto the network. 25% of employees on average are using their own devices for work when traveling, especially. So you might have someone with something like an open VPN client, even on a tablet or a phone or a laptop connecting from abroad. As you can see there in the little window, 87% of companies are dependent on employee access to mobile business apps. And then you can see, the mobile devices, mobile apps are becoming very mission critical to businesses. Exactly how critical, you can see here as far as employee productivity goes, it's kind of off the charts now. People are more global now. We're more remote. Employees are more highly dispersed, teams are dispersed across the country. So we have to be able to give that access no matter what the device is. So BYOD can change things drastically when we talk about content filtering, licensing, things like that, but it is trending upwards, and it's something everyone's basically accepting and allowing on their networks. As I mentioned, some of the challenges, obviously, if there's company data accessible on mobile devices, that can increase attack vectors, potential data loss. If someone connects with their own personal iPhone, I don't specifically know as an admin what kind of security they have on that iPhone, for example. A lack of visibility for those personal devices connecting to your network can be an issue, of course. So our Captive Portal, which we'll show you, can offer things like authentication, usernames, even a local directory if you don't have something like Active Directory or Radius server. And there are obviously limited security options on personally owned devices, like I said, with both hardware and apps. I'm an Android user, and I work in network security, so I'm a little paranoid. So I pretty much stick to official apps, the stuff that Google approves. But you never know. There's been some pretty nefarious apps in the Google Play Store here recently too. So it just kind of depends on the device, but you don't know that, right? Because your organization doesn't own the device and control it. As you can see, 1 in 5 organizations will probably experience a data breach via BYOD, and 51% of companies allowing it have experienced a mobile data breach. Security and employee privacy are obviously the biggest inhibitors to BYOD adoption. Employee privacy is kind of a big one, but if you're issuing organization-owned devices, their privacy expectations are probably going to be part of their acceptable usage policy that they sign in their employee handbook and things like that. So when it's BYOD for public Wi-Fi or something along those lines, it does change a little bit. But security to me is, as you can see there, 39% is the biggest concern because you don't know what those devices have on them or what they've been doing at home the night before. So that's when we would want to introduce you to something like Untangle. Untangle is a unified threat management device. So we're not a router firewall, we're not a web content filter. We're all those things, but we're called a UTM now. So this is a really, really great solution for small and medium-sized businesses, government agencies. It's quick and easy to deploy and manage. This is a pretty low-cost subscription-based software solution. So we are a software company. We sell appliances, obviously, but there are a lot of ways to deploy Untangle, either virtually or in the Amazon Web Services and the public cloud. Because of those options, it's a pretty easy plug-and-play setup and deployment. There are multiple channels of support, whether it's our forums and our wiki site for like self-serve, or if you have a live subscription for support, we can actually just get on the phone with you. Untangle will provide proactive, actionable alerts, notifications, historical reports going back to a year, depending on your hard drive storage. We can keep up to 365 days. And as I said, if you do have a live support subscription, you have advanced support, which is remote support from our team here in Colorado on the phone. And then Untangle does offer pretty seamless transparency from start to finish. Unless you put up something like a captive portal, like we're showing today, users don't know about Untangle. We're very transparent in the middle traffic inspector. So basically, we're going to help you protect, control, monitor your business critical networks. And even when we're talking about BYOD and people just bringing random devices onto the network. So let's talk about some of Untangle's products. The basic Untangle next-gen firewall platform is our more or less freemium software that you could download. And then, as you can see, you can add apps on top of that. So it's basically just a software platform for deploying our applications that you can get in a complete package, a la carte, however you need. The apps will inspect traffic simultaneously and enforce rules. That's an interesting aspect to the way we filter traffic and inspect it, because we use what's called virtual pipelining rather than proxy chaining. So there's not a long assembly line for a packet to go through to be inspected. Untangle's is more of a dog pile method. As soon as a packet is seen as HTTP, whether it comes through that way or we decrypt it, all of our apps will basically pile on and inspect that packet simultaneously. And I mentioned the reports. We'll go through those here a bit. Live custom reports let you drill down into any aspect of traffic as quick as you need now. As of version 14, we've got these new condition buttons. We can just go say, I want to see my dashboard per username, per policy ID. I just want to see what the teachers are all doing right now. It's gotten a lot easier in Untangle to drill down into really specific pieces of information on a report. Our feature set is broken down into 6 categories. You can see here, these are color-coded in our UI as well. When we'll get over to my server, you'll notice that. So as you can see, the basic functionality, protecting, filtering, performance, those are all right there over on the left. And then on the right, you see some of the more service-related apps. We're connecting to VPN services, directories, like your Active Directory domain, and creating policies and reporting. And then under add-ons, you see Branding Manager and Live Support. Branding Manager will actually, if you're a provider, an IT company, an MSP, that will allow you to update Untangle's interfaces and pages to have your logos, your information, and brand it as your own. And then I mentioned Live Support as well. That's one of the add-ons. Even if you only have our free package running web filter and bandwidth control, you can buy live support to match that, and then have support on that device too. That will add up pretty quick, and you might want to switch to the complete package. It'd be a better value for you. But this is the software that Untangle offers. This is what we'll see on the server when we jump over there. You can see this anytime on our demo server, demo.untangle.com. It's always on. There's no password. So supporting BYOD and open Wi-Fi is obviously getting a little complicated. A lot of that is coming down to the nature of deep packet inspection. We're seeing about 85% total HTTPS encryption on the internet here in the States, and that obviously changes things with mobile devices and inspecting their traffic. With Captive Portal here, we can actually block internet access for users until they view and accept your policy. So the Captive Portal page is obviously editable. You put in your own policy and rules there. Please be nice on the internet. Welcome to our portal, et cetera, et cetera. You can also enable payments for Wi-Fi hotspot access if you're, a little market, a coffee shop, the hotel. This would be done through a custom captive page, so you can customize a captive portal page to be displayed. And this is also able to authenticate users. So we can do this a lot of different ways. You see there we use OAuth for things like Facebook and Google accounts. That to me is a very good use case for the coffee shop scenario up there. It maybe you want to do some social marketing. You can actually capture people's Facebook, Google IDs, and then if you need to, create a little database for marketing. And then obviously you're able to report on all users' activities. The authentication helps a ton with that. Rather than seeing IPs, host names, you'll see usernames. So obviously that depends on the traffic. If we're looking at just random public Wi-Fi, there's not always going to be usernames. So we'll still see IPs, MAC addresses, device hosts if they have them. And then we'll be able to report on all of that as it comes through Untangle. So how would you deploy Untangle? That's a great question. How would you like to deploy it? We have a lot of different options. As I said, we are a software company. This is a piece of software that can be put on a lot of different platforms. So it's a basic hybrid cloud product. We are an on-premise gateway device with hardware, but we are cloud managed, powered by cloud intelligence, doing all these call outs for things like antivirus telemetry, calling to our command center for licensing and configurations, things like that. I mentioned the virtual pipelining. We don't do the proxy chaining. That's just a long assembly line for a packet to go through. So all of our traffic is inspected by all the apps simultaneously, which is going to lower latency, I think. I use the term dogpile. That's how I visualize it to people. If a packet comes through, all the apps see it, then they just jump on and scan it. And if it needs to be re-encrypted, they do that and they push it back out. Because of all these hybrid cloud virtual options, we do have a lighter hardware footprint. This is running Linux Debian as the underlying OS, so that's a pretty minimal OS. It doesn't require a lot of power, so it can be run on smaller, cheaper hardware, whether ours or yours. Untangle.com does have an appliances page. You can see all of the hardware we offer. I'll show you those here in a second. And we also offer the technical specs for all those devices online. If you're comparing to one you have in a closet or sourcing your own through spare parts or building one yourself, we do have some specs online that you can see and kind of base your own on. And then again, the public cloud deployments we can run in Amazon Web Services now as bring your own license or with PageE licenses. So these are two basic deployment scenarios depending on how you want to run Untangle in the Amazon cloud. Are we going to protect other Untangle, or I'm sorry, are we going to protect other Amazon boxes behind the Untangle, or are we going to protect your endpoints? So there's a couple of different scenarios, but that's a very new, very cool option, doing firewall as a service in the public cloud like that. If you or a client already have a lot of infrastructure in AWS, it's a really, really cool solution because you just add Untangle as another Amazon machine instance. Okay, I caught that coughing fit. That was a good one. I mentioned the Untangle Cloud Scan for virus telemetry data. What that is called technically is Scout IQ. This is a cloud-based threat intelligence platform that's included with our virus blocker application at no additional cost. So what it's really doing is aggregating anonymous telemetry data from across different Untangle deployments around the world. So when you opt in to communicate with Scout IQ, you're going to be able to share information with Untangles around the world through the Scout IQ aggregation system. So if a device somewhere in Ireland sees a piece of information that no one else has seen and it uploads that into Scout IQ and it's verified, that's then going to update the rest of the Untangles, and they'll be able to communicate with Scout IQ and understand that that's a real threat. So it's identifying things seen in the wild. This is going to give you a confidence level even on the piece of malware. If you click it in a Scout IQ window, it'll show you some pieces of information if Untangle is the one that caught it or if another vendor caught it, and then we were able to aggregate that. And as I said, this is just part of Virus Blocker. It's included at no additional cost. So it's something I really recommend using. Untangle's virus blocking does some really interesting stuff at your gateway for you, and this is just another layer of that doesn't cost anything additional. So I always recommend connecting to Scout IQ when you get Untangle set up. The other aspect of connecting to the Untangle cloud is making your device available in Command Center. A lot of you have probably been playing around with Command Center lately. It's our cloud-based centralized management. It's your account management, everything you need. When you log into Untangle.com now, you're in Command Center. So this is where you can manage multi-site deployments without any additional hardware. You'll see all your devices here, get alerts, threat history, audit logs across all sites. So it gives you a dashboard, which is a single pane of aggregate information across your entire fleet of Untangles. This is also now giving you the ability to add licensing, update software, reboot devices, create backups, all this kind of stuff from the cloud. Some of the coolest things we can do now are cloning and editing policies and pushing them across the fleet. So you can do things now in Command Center like creating a master policy template and then pushing it to other devices as they come online, et cetera, et cetera. So that's going to reduce management overhead and hopefully some associated costs with zero touch provisioning, which is a new thing we're doing as well. So if you do have a client that orders an Untangle box and their office is 15 miles away, you could, with zero touch provisioning, send the Untangle box to their office. They plug it in, they, give you the serial number, and you punch that into Command Center and it pulls its configuration down remotely. So hopefully that will lower overhead for some MSPs, not have to go to every client site anymore. And this is all included with NG Firewall Complete now. Command Center is completely free. If you missed that email, Command Center was free for your first 5 eligible servers up until a few weeks ago. Then there was pricing structures. It's all completely free now. So there will still be eligibility requirements. This is included within NG Firewall Complete in its full-blown functionality, free of charge, which is great. So I did mention Untangle's line of appliances. This is what we offer hardware-wise. You see the X series on the left. That's our newest line. A little bit newer hardware revisions. They're little form factor boxes. You can see the nomenclature there, U25, U150. These are based on the number of concurrent devices that these boxes are rated to filter with our apps enabled. So U25X is good for up to 25 hosts. 50 is up to 50. There's a little leeway, obviously, in each of these. The licensing isn't specifically tied to those numbers. If you bought a U150, for example, you could license that for 50 devices. Just get, better hardware, room to grow, but then just baby step your licensing as you grow. So the licensing can start small. When we do, pre-sales conversations in Untangle, the hardware is what we like to get right. Whether you're speccing this with our box or yours or a virtual environment, we want to get those specifications right based on your host count, your device count. And keep in mind, excuse me, Untangle does offer layer 3 bypass rules to remove devices from licensing and basically from layer 7 filtering. So depending, on a real small office, 10, 12 computers all the way up to a school campus with 2,000 or 3,000. Untangle has some interesting hardware options, and you can get in on these pretty cheap. If you go to our website and click on appliances, you can see all of our pricing. There's a buy tab as well up at the top right. So these are really cool. Like I said, the ones on the left, the X series, is our newest offering. That was kind of an experiment earlier this year, but they've kind of flown off the shelves. We can't keep them in stock, so I feel the X series is here to stay. Those are interesting devices. I have a U50XW at my house, and it's been pretty solid for the 6 or 7 months I've had it. So let's jump out of the slide deck real quick and get over to my virtual machine here. So this is an actual live virtual box I've got pulled up. I would normally do this on our demo server. If you want to play along, it's demo.untangle.com, but I can't save changes there. You can't either. So let's do this here where I can show you some options in a captive portal. So anyone familiar with Untangle sees that I've got the complete package running here. Captive Portal is an open source app. It's part of our free package. However, with the free package, it's a very limited thing, right? You're going to offer them access, but beyond that, you won't be able to filter them, shape their traffic, do any virus blocking, that kind of stuff. So Captive Portal really shows its value with our complete package. That's what I'm going to show you today. So as you can see here, I'm on my default policy. I also have a policy for Wi-Fi users, which inherits the rules from default. That's why it's indented like that. And when I click on it, you'll see that everything's grayed out except for the web filter and the Captive Portal. So these are the only 2 things I need from the people coming in on my Wi-Fi. I just want to capture their traffic, and I want to be able to use the web filter to filter their traffic. So there's a chance I've also connected to a directory, maybe Active Directory or Radius, something like that. When I go into Captive Portal, I can tell it over here on authentication if I'm connected to something. This device currently isn't connected to any authentication. If I wanted to, I could set it up on my local directory. This is where you can set your timeouts. The defaults are 0 on idle and 60 on the timeout. This is also where you can track logins using MAC addresses. This is a really, really handy tool in Untangle, especially when you don't always pay close attention, I guess, to the Wi-Fi. So we can do, a new device has popped up on your network alert. So if we want to, you can know about every single device getting on the network. We can track their logins with their MAC. And then we can also allow cookie-based authentication right here. This is ideal for folks on something like a domain. They sign into their Windows machine in the morning, Captive Portal gets their login, and they're there for 24 hours. So we don't have to make people log in every time they go to the web. If you want them to, obviously we can change that. But when we allow cookie-based authentication, ideally, people will log in once a day with this default and then not have to again until the next day. When you log into Untangle, when you click on your Captive Portal, just like all of our other apps, it's going to show you some stats and it's going to show you your capture rules. There's always this one rule built in: capture all traffic on non-WAN interfaces. I have that enabled, but something I always try to get across in our pre-sales demos when I talk about Captive Portal, or just calls supporting customers, please don't pigeonhole yourself into thinking this is just for Wi-Fi users. We can put a portal page in front of anybody, in front of any kind of traffic that meets these conditions. If I wanted to say, all the Apple devices get a captive page, we could do something like that. Most commonly, we do this by interface, maybe by IPs, anything coming in on non-WAN, everybody coming in on the wireless. But there are a lot of different options in here. You could, for example, only throw a portal up if they go to a specific website. If they, need SSL inspector done. This is a real weird rule for Captive Portal. I've never seen it used, but there's a lot of conditions in here. So generally, for the most part, this is done by interface. We say if you're coming in on this interface on Untangle, you get this portal. You don't always have the luxury of having a ton of network adapters on Untangle for us to just say interface 4, etc. So we have rules like this built in with big open conditions. So you can say anybody coming in, etc., will get presented a page. Over here on past host, you can see we have one local host entered. This one, regardless of the rules, won't get the portal page. So if you do need to pass a client or a server, those are here. It's just a quick IP pass rule. I actually don't need that one, so I'm going to delete it. Then on the captive page, this is where you basically determine how you want your information presented to folks. So on the page here, I'm just doing basic message. So this is where you say, welcome to our captive portal, etc. Please be nice on the internet. You have to agree to our terms. Clicking here means you agree to the terms above. If you have any questions, contact your admin, etc. This is also where we can check for or force a root certificate. So I mentioned this a little bit in a BYOD environment. This is getting to be a little bit cumbersome because we don't know what kind of device that is. An Android device won't recognize anyone but Google as a certificate authority now. So there are some devices like that that are being a little bit squirrely when it comes to this kind of stuff. So depending on the device, the traffic, maybe we create a policy where there's a captive portal like this that doesn't do any certificate detection or forcing. So that's all available right there. We can also do some redirects if we need to, just redirect them, to the company's website, to your coffee shop's website after the portal, that kind of thing. We could also change this to have a login. So the authentication over here is where it's going to pull that login, depending on how you have your directory connector set up, or if you don't have one, using Untangle's local directory. The captive page, again, can be customized. This is what our basic login page would look like. So if I save this here as login, let's preview it. And this is what they'll see. So if you upload a custom page, obviously you can change all this. You can put in some, HTML, you can use Python, all kinds of things. On our actual wiki page for Captive Portal, this is wiki.untangle.com. There are a few custom pages created and saved as zip files. These are Again, open source and pretty basic. So there are a couple of handy ones here. If you're, for example, just a hotel and you just want to do a last name and a room number, we have a portal page like that you can download and upload into your custom page. So I always try to get across to folks that this is an open source app, and out of the box it can seem a little limited. It does a very good job of what it does. But if you really want something like social marketing, doing a fancy page that's tying into some ticketing system, we would just recommend creating a custom page or going to our user forums where someone has likely already created that page and uploaded it. So that's a big part of captive portal customization and troubleshooting, is using our wiki and our forums, because this is an open source app. So that's what the login would look like. And as I said, if you want to do a custom page, you can come over here and just upload a zip file. And then also you can do a couple of different things here on the redirect. I didn't really show, if you want to block instead of capture unauthenticated, you can do that. But this is the basics of Captive Portal. It's an entry point. Once these folks come through this Captive Portal on this specific policy, what they're then going to come through are the web filter rules that I set up for them on this policy, and then any other rules that are set up above them on these apps here. And you see I don't have SSL Inspector turned on. I don't have web cache because I have more than 5 megs down. So all I'm really saying is, okay, I need to capture their traffic and I need to filter their web. Maybe I'm just blocking malware and pornography. It could be a really simple thing. It just depends on the BYOD traffic and the nature of the organization. Things like this always come down to your organization and your usage policy, how much filtering you need to do. The captive portal is just the door to get them into Untangle. So keep in mind, we can present that really in front of anybody, not just Wi-Fi. And then once that's done, we can tailor any apps to those users they really need. So whether it's coming through different policies, coming through different virus blocking, all that can be done through Untangle with policy management, obviously. So Directory Connector is your app to get authentication tied in, unless you use Untangle's local directory. And then Policy Manager is your app to come in and say, I need different rules for my Wi-Fi users. So as I said, Captive Portal is part of our free package. It doesn't really shine until you're able to do some layer 7 filtering for those users as well, I feel like. So just keep that in mind. This is all part of our 2-week free trial. If you want to download Untangle for 14 days and play around, feel free to shoot us any questions while you're doing that. Support at Untangle, pre-sales at Untangle as well. So let's jump back over to my deck here. See if we have any questions hanging out there we can answer. Shannon, is there anything that kind of hasn't gone answered just yet?
No, I think just had just a couple questions just about how the filtering works, so not really related to this. But there was a question about, you mentioned the demo, but I also wanted to mention the trial.
Yeah, let's just go show you that real quick here. So if I go over to, let's go to untangle.com. So by default, when you download Untangle, depending on how you do it, you get a 14-day trial no matter what. So this is where you can do that. If you come to download, there's a lot of different ways to do this. Obviously, if you're going to throw it on a piece of hardware, you can make a bootable USB, make a CD image, but you can also grab this ISO and throw it into something like Hyper-V or VirtualBox, from Oracle, a free hypervisor to test it out. You can see we do make a file for VMware. So this is the hypervisor that we support. This is the one we use. This is one our engineers developed for. So you can throw this onto almost anything, I feel like. And it's a great way to test because it'll give you 2 weeks. If 2 weeks isn't enough, just email us. We'll look into extending that for you. But we do have a lot of articles linked here too. If you're not sure how to download this and create a bootable USB, it'll depend on your OS. If you're using Windows, it's a simple thing. If you're using Mac, you have to go grab an app because that's how it is. But obviously the installation page, our user forums, the support page, all that stuff is right here. For any new folks, our support knowledge base is support.untangle.com. It just got a really nice facelift. If you just jump in and you see, articles about Command Center, about how to create users, all that stuff, just, grab them, bookmark them. Support is really good about documentation because we, like I said, have freeware. We have a lot of free users. So Untangle is really well documented between our wiki and our forums and our support knowledge base. But yeah, 2-week free trial, full support during that trial, which means you can get everything set up and save your configuration locally or in the cloud before you ever spend any money with us. So if you decide to pull the trigger on Untangle, you've got your configuration already saved and backed up. You just kind of pull that down, and then your box is up and running.
Great. People are asking about pricing, so I don't know if you want to, while you're on the website, go to the buy page. Yeah.
This is honestly one of my favorite things about Untangle as a company. In this industry, you tend to have to go through layers and layers of folks to find out what something costs, but we don't do that. So this is retail, obviously. If you look, you see different terms here. So monthly is our base price for pretty much anything. So if you want an NG Firewall complete for your 10 computers at your tiny office, it'd be $25 a month. So you get bigger discounts the more you go. As I said earlier, this is also a modular thing. If you want to go a la carte, I just want to see mobile apps and shape their traffic and connect to my directory and create policies. Well, that's getting expensive, isn't it? So the site itself will tell you you should switch to complete and save $100. This is also where you can look into our professional services here. If you're coming from a competitor product, maybe you have a Sonic Wall firewall or an old Cisco ASA sitting there and you want Untangle to replace that, you can pay our support team here to actually convert those settings onto the Untangle. If you're doing a piece of hardware, we do that before we even mail you the hardware. If you're a virtual, we would just get your config file and then send you a backup file. So that's a really handy thing. System installation and config is also handy if you're installing onto, bare bones metal, a spare server you bought, something like that. We can help walk you through and configure. The most popular professional service we offer is our system optimization. It's no coincidence that it's the cheapest also, but this is a really handy thing because you can buy, 20 of these a year if you want to. This is basically an extended support call. So if you don't think you can figure out what's going on, get it doing what you want in a, 30, 45-minute support call or working a ticket with our team here, you can go for a system optimization service, which gives you 2 hours of one of our support techs on the phone with you. So they go through the entire configuration. If you've downloaded Untangle and played around, you'll understand why we do that. This is a really, really big piece of software, and we can't always even get to every button in a 30, 40, 60-minute support call. So if you need it, system optimization is a handy thing. Like I said, you could buy Untangle today and wait a week and buy one of those and buy one every month if you wanted to. But this is just the buy tab up there. You can go through and create your own quotes, configure your own products here, and then see what everything costs. But keep in mind, this is retail. If you qualify for nonprofit or public sector discount, we do a lot of big discounts on the software packages. There's always little promos running. There's all kinds of things like that your sales rep would probably be able to offer that I don't know about. So I won't put numbers in anybody's mouth. But this is how you see what Untangle costs basically in the ballpark retail.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. I was just going to mention for a school or a nonprofit or a private organization, we do offer the special pricing. So it'd be best if you contact us at sales@untangle.com so we can better give you, assist you and give you a more accurate quote. The online pricing is just the base pricing. As Chad mentioned, there's always workarounds. If you have a tight budget, we know schools have budgets or end of year things they need to try and use up. So please give us a call.
We come out of the gate with almost half off though. So keep that in mind, folks. Like I said, that's retail you see on NG Firewall Complete. You can look at all those nonprofit public sector packages as well. Anything else, Shannon?
No, not at this time.
Cool. So just a couple other slides here to go over real quick. Some of the key differentiators we've really talked about pretty much this entire webinar. But I think top right here, those first 4 words, this is built specifically for small to medium businesses and small to medium government deployments. So we're doing enterprise level security, but consumer level simplicity. And to me, this is a really big difference in our industry. Untangle is a very small company. We are technically a small business still supporting small businesses. That's a very different feel when you call, Dell or Cisco or Fortinet or somebody like that. Untangle has 4 support techs. Whoever answers the phone gets you fixed up. We don't outsource that stuff. We're kind of a mom and pop shop, to be honest. Still, the software itself is kind of just sailing right along. Untangle is coming up on our 16th year of existence. Software's been stable for a long time, but it is still browser based. We loaded basically a UVM on top of hardware with that fully responsive admin console and our more or less industry leading reporting on the box. The intelligent default settings, we do tune those to real world cases. So if you actually go through the Untangle recommended apps when you do the install, that's kind of our baseline configuration for checking a few boxes, blocking pornography out of the gate, things like that. As I showed you, the policy management gives you global top-down approach as opposed to kind of a bottom-up approach. Our policy manager is pretty extensive. As I showed you, you can set up a lot of conditions, and Untangle doesn't care. It'll just route those regardless. It can get confusing for you as an admin, I think, if you set up tons and tons of rules and policies, but Untangle doesn't care. As long as the rules are in the right order, everybody goes through the right apps. We do have really comprehensive bandwidth shaping capabilities as well. Like I mentioned earlier, we can't bypass devices to remove them from licensing. And when we do that, that makes them available for quality of service traffic shaping. So layer 3 bypass devices, we do quality of service. When we're filtering devices, we shape them with bandwidth control in the apps. And we do also offer automatic seamless upgrades. The product will always be up to date if you set it for automatic upgrades. We don't charge for new versions or anything like that. So if you set it to auto update, every time Untangle rolls out a new version, it'll go ahead and do that for you. If there is something like our recent version 14 that required a reboot for a new kernel update, we'll make that known in an announcement. We don't normally have to do lots of reboots, things like that when we do upgrades. This is one of the most flexible solutions in this industry, I think. As I said, it's a software-based solution, but it can be deployed pretty much anywhere. I used this word earlier. This is kind of freemium software. You download us from the site. At the end of your 14-day trial of the complete package, you will just revert to our free apps. So you'll still have Untangle. It'll just be the free package with routing and a firewall and intrusion prevention. And then obviously we talked about a little bit about cloud-based centralized management. That's Command Center. No additional hardware requirements, no additional cost for that now either. We have been winning some awards, getting some recognition here lately. You can see we won a gold award this year for the American Security Today Astros Awards. So there's a lot of good awards on there. The ones I love are Best in Biz Customer Friendly Customer Service Technical Support. 2018 Stevie Gold winner for customer service and tech support. I work out here in Colorado in our tech support office where our cloud dev and support teams are. And I hear these folks on the phone all day and they rock, and that's why they win awards. We also have a pretty active community. I'm our brand rep on Spiceworks. If any of you use spiceworks.com, you can just say the word Untangle and it'll tag me and I'll either give you a real helpful answer or a hilarious GIF as a response. I don't really know, depends. But also our community forums are really, really active. This is a Linux product with a very active DIY Linux community. If you have a question about something like third-party hardware or some custom configurations that we don't support, go to the forums because I can almost guarantee you'll find some tips and tricks or someone who can help you get that set up with a previous configuration even. So just keep that kind of thing in mind. This is not the kind of community where you need to be intimidated or embarrassed as a noob. This is a big piece of software and we understand that it can be intimidating. So if you come to our forums, you're going to get answers from the engineers who build Untangle and our director of QA and our support techs and our pre-sales engineers. So as well as some of our power users. I'm a big fan of our forums, I guess, because it's a really handy thing, especially maybe it's the middle of the night, we're not a 24/7 support model just yet. So you can just throw something on the forums. If the Untangle employees are all asleep because of the time zone, maybe somebody like Skynight is awake, and you'll just get a great answer anyway. That's more or less gospel. So don't be afraid of the forums. Don't be afraid of Spiceworks. We're all here to help. We have a lot of resources for you to try Untangle out, kick the tires. If you do have any questions, as Shana mentioned, you can email support@untangle.com, pre-sales@untangle.com, or sales@untangle.com to get a hold of us. Again, on our website, there's a resources page. You can see customer quotes, you can see testimonials, video case studies. Depending on what industry you're in, we might have a company that's real similar, or a little sheriff's office just like yours. So jump on the site, go to the resources page, and if you want to, run through some of these case studies on our YouTube channel, and you'll see some folks, probably in real similar situations to you that Untangle is able to help them, sleep better at night, take a couple of boxes off their network diagram, that kind of thing. Once again, as I said, if you want to contact us, sales@untangle.com. There's our base number right there. You can hit 1 for sales, 2 for support, or just hit me up with any pre-sales questions. If you're just trialing it, you can do pre-sales@untangle.com. That'll come to our sales engineering team, and we can answer just any basic questions you might have or set up a demo, that kind of stuff. Shannon, do we have any other questions hanging out? Do you want to wrap up?
No, just seeing if anyone has any last minute questions, but doesn't seem to be. Someone was asking, we did release our 14.1 last month for NG Firewall, and so was asking when to get that upgrade. If you want the upgrade sooner than just having it come to your box, you can email support@untangle.com with the UID of your box to get it sooner. We generally like to roll them out slowly just in the event that, something is wrong with the
As,
with the
as I said, we have 4 support techs, yes, and 50-something thousand installs. So we do roll those out in pools. So if your UID pool hasn't been hit yet, like Shannon said, just email support with your UID number, the full 16 digits, and we'll add it for you.
Yeah, so I think that seems to be it. Thank you everyone
Cool.
for joining us. We do have a Tech Talks webinar, which is our more highly technical. Chad goes into uh, the apps in a very, very technical aspect. So if that's of interest to you, it's on our intrusion prevention app in a couple weeks. That was just recently updated in the 14.1 release. So if that's of interest to you, please register for that. You can find the webinars as well as any other upcoming ones on our website under webinars page. And yes, this webinar was recorded and you will receive a copy of this within 24 hours. It'll also be posted on our Untangle YouTube channel. So you'll be able to rewatch this at your own convenience. And again, I know we've mentioned this a million times, but sales@untangle.com or support@untangle.com if we were not able to get to your questions, or if you have a question that comes up later on, we are happy to help. Thank you, Chad, for the great demo, and we hope to see you soon.